Hello everybody. In this video I wanted to do a re-evaluation of my top 10 favourite British bands. I did one last year, but since then I really got into Deep Purple. And looking back at that, of course Deep Purple wasn't on my top 10 list, but now it's changed quite a bit. So before I get into the top 10, I'm gonna go through some honourable mentions. So these are British bands that didn't make the top 10, but I think they deserve a mention because, they're not far off. So obviously Black Sabbath, pioneers of heavy metal, love Black Sabbath. Small Faces, great 60s R&B group. The Yardbirds, great blues rock band. You got Eric Clapton on there, Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, and they kind of did pioneer psychedelic rock as well. So yeah, great band. Obviously, Free, the band with Paul Rodgers. Paul Rodgers is a great vocalist. Dave Clark 5, obviously, great 60s group. Some other great British groups from the 60s, the Hollies, Herman's Hermits, Gerry and the Pacemakers, the Animals, of course. You gotta love the Animals. The Animals are just amazing. Another one, Electric Light Orchestra. They could have made the top 10. They're amazing. Just a superb symphonic rock band. And Jeff Lynne is a genius. And yeah, a few others, Supertramp, another really good band. Rainbow, of course, Ritchie Blackmore, Ronnie James Dio. Motorhead is another one. So yeah, these are like all the honourable mentions I could name, but these are not in the top 10. So we're into the top 10 now. This is no particular order. It's no particular order. These are just 10 British bands that are my favourites. So obviously Pink Floyd, great, it's debatable whether you consider them progressive rock or not, but Dark Side of the Moon is my favourite album by Pink Floyd. Is actually Piper of the Gates of Dawn, but I don't actually own that one yet. So this one here is probably my second or third favourite, but yeah, love Pink Floyd, and can't really say anything about them that hasn't been said. And obviously Led Zeppelin, along with Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, and these got, the holy trinity of hard rock and metal. And Led Zeppelin 2 is my favourite album by Led Zeppelin. I mean, all of their albums are great to me. They're all masterpieces. But Led Zeppelin 2 is probably my favourite. I mean, when I did my Led Zeppelin album ranking, I did put it at number 1. And obviously, The Who. Gotta have The Who. The Who are amazing. Pete Townsend, great guitar player, a fantastic songwriter. Roger Daltrey, great singer. And this is The Who Sellout, my favourite. I know some people favour Tommy or Who's Next. I love those albums as well. They're in the top 3 for me for sure. But this one is my favourite. And of course, well, technically this band is sort of British and American, but I decided to include it because it's a trio. Two of the members are British, one member is American. That's Jimi Hendrix Experience. Jimi Hendrix is obviously American, but Noel Redding and Mitch Mitchell were British, and the band was formed in London, so they are a British band. But yeah, can't deny Jimi Hendrix. He is just superb. Just a superb guitar player, and unfortunately he was taken from us too soon. But yeah, fantastic trio there, and this is Axis Bold as Love. This is my favourite album by them, although they only did 3 albums, but all 3 of them are masterpieces. Like, any of those 3 could be my favourite. They're all that great. They're fantastic. And Deep Purple, You know, I consider these guys, you know, probably the best hard rock band of all time. And this is Deep Purple in rock. This is my absolute favourite album by Deep Purple. Some people say Machine Head is their favourite. I mean, Machine Head's probably my second favourite, but this is my number one, you know. I do want to do I did an album ranking of the Mark 1 Deep Purple albums, you know, from, you know, with when Rod Evans was in the group. You know, I ranked the 3 of those. But eventually I want to rank the albums from the Mark 2 lineup, you know, with Ian Gillan. And this is definitely going to go at number 1. You know, it's not only my favourite album from this lineup of the band, but it's my favourite album from this band, you know, in general. It's a brilliant album. Not a bad song on here. Like every track on here is a standout. This is a flawless album. You know, just perfect. It's perfect. And obviously, Cream. You know, great psychedelic rock trio. You know, Eric Clapton, Ginger Baker, Jack Bruce, and this is my favourite album by them, Wheels of Fire. You know, I know a lot of people favour Disraeli Gears, which Disraeli Gears is my second favourite Cream album. It is, well, all their albums are great. You know, they only had four albums, but they're all great. I love them all. But this was the one that got me into them, so this is my favourite. Obviously, the Rolling Stones are obviously on the list. Now, as I said before, I'm not ranking this top 10, you know, this is no particular order. I just pulled, you know, 10 CDs, you know, CDs from my shelf, you know, like one album from the 10 British bands that I'm mentioning here. And yeah, I'm just picking them out of random, but so it's in no particular order, but yeah, obviously the Rolling Stones, you know, love the Rolling Stones, big fan, you know. What can you say about the Stones? I've seen them live, you know, I saw them at Hyde Park last year, they were fab, they were fabulous. And this is Let It Bleed, probably my favourite Stones album. Or, it's really hard to pick a favourite from the Stones because they have so many great ones, but probably this one, probably Let It Bleed, or Exile on Main Street's brilliant as well. Sticky Fingers, Beggar's Banquet, even Satanic Majesty's Request, which I love, you know, they're all great, but yeah, you can't deny the Rolling Stones. Rolling Stones are superb. And obviously, you've got to have the Fab Four, the Beatles, you've got to have the Beatles. You know, I've talked about the Beatles loads of times, I've made like tons of videos on the Beatles on this channel, you know, I absolutely adore the Beatles. You know, they changed music, you know, they were innovators. You know, cultural icon. You can't deny the Beatles. You know, absolutely superb. Even though they weren't together for long, they were only together for less than a decade, but they were amazing. And Magical Mystery Tour is my favourite Beatles album. Like when I did the ranking, I put Magical Mystery Tour at number 1. It's probably a controversial choice, but you know, but I have a lot of, but it's nostalgia reasons. You know, Magical Mystery Tour's always been one of my, I mean, some of the others could easily be my favourites because, you know, Beatles are one of those bands, they never did a bad album or a weak album in my opinion. You know, they're all excellent in their own right. But yeah, love the Beatles. And of course, the Kinks, you know, big Kinks fan. Mainly the 60s stuff and some of the stuff from the early 70s, but yeah, Kinks are amazing. I think they're a little bit underrated, you know, compared to the Beatles, the Stones, and the Who. The Kinks are probably underrated compared to those bands, but Kinks are amazing. You know, the Davis brothers, you know, Ray and Dave, they're just geniuses. The pair of them. Although they didn't really get along in the band, you know, they would fight, but they were geniuses. They created some brilliant music. And this is their best album, in my opinion. Village Green Preservation Society. It's just, this is their Sgt. Pepper. It's just great. So yeah, you've got to love the Kinks. And obviously, Queen. You know, what can you say about Queen? You know, Freddie Mercury, one of the best front men of all time. I can't say anything negative about Freddie Mercury. He was amazing. And Brian May, brilliant guitar player, great songwriter as well. You know, all the other band members wrote songs as well. John Deacon, great bass player. Roger Taylor, brilliant drummer. You know, and of course some of the other members did sing vocals as well. And Roger Taylor was a good vocalist. I think he would sing like maybe one song on each album, and so did Brian May. But yeah, I love Queen. You know, probably the first band that I truly, truly loved, and then followed shortly after I got into the Beatles shortly after, and yeah, but I love Queen. And Night at the Opera is probably my favourite Queen album. Although it's difficult with Queen because I love all their albums. You know, they're another band where every album is great for me. And there's a lot of people who don't like Hot Space, but I love Hot Space. I think it's an underrated album, and I think it's unfairly criticised. So yeah, that's my top 10. So, you know, that wasn't in any particular order. You know, that I just showed it in order of how the CDs were piled. You know, when I got them off the shelf, but I'm going to give you you viewers a task. If you can get my top three bands, because this was in no particular order, but if you can get my top three in the right order, I'll give you a shout out on my next video. So yeah, so you got to guess what my top three maybe are, and put them in the order that you think I would have them in. You know, put that in the comments. You know, and then I'll give you a shout out on the next video, and then. So yeah, please do. And yeah, and I'll look forward to seeing these comments. Take care.